Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and this is part 2 of my maybe 3-part series where I'm showing the Congress of the United States what is going on at the SEC and how they're not protecting the investors that they were sent there to protect, and how they are literally getting together with certain people in private industry and trying to slam the door on innovation in the United States of America and only pick a handful of winners and then just slam the door on all other innovation. And that's what they're trying to do. We have the proof, we have the timeline, we have it all, folks. And so Congress, here you go. What you're looking at is Joseph Lubin. This video also features William Hinman, and I will stop this as necessary to fill you in on what's going on. And Joseph Lubin, just so you know, Joseph Lubin is the founder. He's the founder of Ethereum and of Consensus.
Project started in January 2014. We raised funds in a crowd sale and earned
He issued a security.
$1 million in that event. Applied that money to the development of the system, and
so he used the money for the development of the system, Ethereum. That right there is a security.
By 2015, Ethereum version 1 client was released.
Now, you also talked about initial coin offerings, or ICOs, which are ways of raising money using cryptocurrencies. Did you use a similar reasoning? You implied that most seem to be securities, ICOs, but some of them are not. Can you just show us what the difference is simply?
And by the way, just so you know, as Congress, this is Bill Hinman. He's the guy at the SEC that walked to the podium on June 14th of 2018. And he did the Ethereum free pass speech, is what we call it here. And in that speech, he said that Ethereum was sufficiently decentralized enough to now not be a security. And let's just set aside the fact that they issued a security back then. Now, we're not going to do that for anybody else, but we're going to set aside the fact that they did an ICO and a pre-sale and issued a security back in 2015. Why they're going to set it aside for Ethereum, he never says that. And now in the courtroom versus Ripple, same guy is saying, oh, that was just his personal opinion, but it wasn't.
I wish we had a simple way to say this is in and this is out. As I mentioned, there are usually facts and circumstances tests, but a key factor is there a third-party promoter here who knows much more about the instrument than investors might? If that's the case, that's sort of an initial indicator that we might have a securities transaction. If people are buying it for investment and for a return and looking to that party for a return, then again, that's an indicia of a security. If you have, on the other hand, a token that's just used in the network for a good or service, and that's why people are buying it, and that service is available and up and running, not under development, then you may not have a security.
Okay, so Joseph Lubin just told you that they were going to use the money to develop the system. So completely contradicting what Bill Hinman's saying here. Okay, so that's the end of that video. And don't you worry, Congress, we have plenty here. All right, and then we've got this right here.
Bitcoin, or if we look at Ether and the highly decentralized nature of the networks, we don't see a third-party promoter where applying the disclosure regime would make a lot of sense. So
there are 2 of them in existence right now, 2 of them that are sufficiently decentralized to be a base trust layer for applications for the planet, Ethereum and Bitcoin. In order to become a base trust layer, you need to...
In order to become a base trust layer, you need to be buddies with the people at the SEC, is what he means to say here.
Issue a token broadly and equitably. You need to garner enough revenue so that you can build your project and continue to build it out, maintain it. You need to have a vibrant, large and growing community. And this is something that Bitcoin and Ethereum didn't have to deal with. You need to be regulatorily compliant.
So he's saying he created Ethereum. I mean, he literally did the pre-sale, but he's saying that we didn't have to be regulatory compliant. I mean, are you serious? Is this the United States of America, Congress? I don't think so.
A fully functional network, and you go ahead and you issue a token in that context, those early tokens will always be security tokens. And again, notwithstanding what the speech said. And we're going, well, tokens are mutable, they can change. And that's what Bill Hinman said. And it's like, well, we don't really believe that.
Now, what you just heard, that is an attorney with Cooley LLP, Nancy Wotas. And what she's saying is, after the Bill Hinman speech and after Ethereum was given the free pass and called a commodity, she and some other attorneys were trying to work with their clients and talk to the SEC. And the SEC tells her behind closed doors that the whole premise of the Hinman speech which was that something could become sufficiently decentralized, and then it's a commodity. She's saying that they're telling her behind closed doors they don't even believe what his speech said. This is crazy. This is one flew over the cuckoo's nest, Congress, and this is your SEC. This is the SEC that has gone rogue and does not represent the American people anymore. And Gary Gensler is the bureaucrat I'll call him a stubborn bureaucrat. He's the stubborn bureaucrat who's being propped up by God knows who and is holding the United States innovation in this industry, holding it hostage with all of his BS. And he won't even tell you in Congress what Ethereum is, whether it's a security or not, because he can't answer that question without having egg all over his face. Now, this, Congress, is one of my favorite ex-SEC commissioners ever. I will introduce you now to Robert Jackson. Robert Jackson, early when we started uncovering all this evidence, I was able to find some videos of Robert Jackson. And remember, you have to remember, the way this was presented from day one by the SEC was as if Bill Hinman just went out there and gave this Ethereum speech and they didn't know anything about it. It just kind of happened. And that wasn't the official position of the SEC. And it was almost like they were trying to make everybody believe that he just went out there and said that. But it's not the official position. What they were really trying to do is they didn't want anybody to be able to hang it around their neck. They didn't want anybody to be able to say, well, you said this was the rule, and now we're abiding by the rule. They didn't want that. They wanted it to be open and vague. That way they could ask you to come in, they'd talk to you, and then after they talked to you for a while and led you to believe that you're working through a process, then they file a lawsuit against you. That's what they did to Ripple. And Robert Jackson is laying it out and telling you this, it was an SEC plan. All of this was their plan.
In the nature of a cryptocurrency, the nature of the asset itself that gives you pause. It's the structure of the markets those assets are traded in rather than features of the asset itself.
Well, that's exactly right. That's very fair, Rob. And let me add one more. About crypto in particular, the other question we face that is very challenging is this a security and to what degree? Is it a security under the securities laws? And I think, I'll be honest, I think my colleagues have done a great job about this. The director of our division of corporation finance is a man named Bill Hinman who did he gave a speech where he laid out, here's how we think about this. And gave a set of principles that the market can follow in understanding, here's how you know if you have a security or if you don't. Now, we haven't answered every particular question, but we've answered a lot. And I'll say one more thing about this. Early in this market, some lawyers out on the West Coast, in my view, got out ahead of their skis. They gave advice that these things were not securities. And candidly, my reaction as a lawyer and human was reading that advice. It was aggressive. As a result of that, the regulator has a job to do, which is to say to the bar, you know the principles here, you know the rules of the game, and you should apply them carefully and faithfully to the advice you're giving. And I think Hinman's speech and the chairman's work in this has moved the market forward a great deal.
So he's telling you, while they were telling you this was not official market guidance coming from the SEC, it was just Bill Hinman's, it was just his opinion or whatever. While they were saying that, this guy's letting you know that was not their intention at all. It was not. This was a plan. And Jay Clayton was involved from the beginning, and we can prove it now. And because we have the timeline, Congress, we have the timeline. Here's Robert Jackson again. These are all the greatest hits.
Before I got in the commission, Jay Clayton stamped that out.
And he came forward and said, if you want to raise money on an ICO basis, you're almost certainly going to have to comply with the securities laws, and here's how that looks. And then we started digging into the harder questions about how do securities laws apply, for example, to cryptocurrencies. Are they likely to be securities when they're first issued or when they're decentralized? Will there be a different view? And I think Bill Hinman gave a terrific speech last fall where he outlined some of those principles and did a good job guiding the market. Now, my guess is a lot of people on this call think the SEC could do even better in providing more guidance in this area. And let me say something about that. I hear you, and I don't think you're wrong, but it is very, very difficult for the government to keep up with a market that's changing at the speed that market is changing at. And that's particularly true when we have some folks on the commission right now who are very hesitant about the use of guidance. In other words, we've got a lot of people who are not so sure that the staff should be providing informal views or guidance to folks in the way that's sometimes necessary to keep up with a fast-moving market. And Tom, let me promise you something. If we had passed a rule on cryptocurrency or on ICOs or what have you in 2017 or 2018, that rule would have been obsolete the day we voted on it, because that market is simply moving too fast for people to believe that that a rulemaking process could keep up with it. So my own view is that the SEC has done a very good job in that area, and that market now has a lot more depth and liquidity and price discovery than it did when I was on the commission. And I think that we'll begin to move in a direction where the commission will provide more clear views to the market about what that space should look like.
Okay. And next up, we have Joseph Lubin of Consensus and Ethereum co-founder himself.
We are big friends and fans of that organization. I think they're really understanding the space well. They are applying this thing called securities law.
Keep in mind, Congress, he's the only one that says there's any clarity. Everybody else is like begging for clarity. Ripple's begging for clarity. But this guy is acting like he's best friends with him. He just said it. He said, oh, they're good friends. Why do you have a government why do we have an SEC that is cozying up to one group of people and making everything intentionally vague to the rest of the industry? And it's worse than that, because we can name the names of the companies involved of cozying up and working this all out. The law firms, we know who did it.
To business in America and other places, as they have done for many decades successfully. They're identifying fraudulent projects. They're identifying obvious transgressions of securities law. But they haven't had a heavy touch, really. They've been gathering information. They've been taking some actions. They've been very clear that they understand there is this new construct, this protocol-based open platform.
So you think they get it?
Yeah, we believe they get it. They've introduced a new construct, decentralization, into their thinking. So in addition to the Howey test, they have this new construct that they're seeing certain things in. So they consider the Bitcoin network and token and issuance mechanisms. They consider the Ethereum network token and issuance mechanisms to be decentralized, and therefore no transactions involving those particular assets are considered to be transactions of securities. They have not said the same thing about other tokens, the Ripple token, for instance, and they were clear that they were going to come out with statements to sort of assess these different tokens, and I believe they've made all the statements about decentralization that they're going to make. And so
for somehow this guy, who is not an SEC commissioner, knows that what kind of statements the SEC is and is not going to make going forward.
Bill Hinman, Director of Corporate Finance, has been very clear about what you can do and what you can't do, and decentralization is a new element that they're working with.
That's not what he said in the Ripple court case. Under an affidavit, Bill Hinman said it was just his personal opinion. Now, here's our buddy Robert Jackson again. Here we go.
Many folks come to me since I took office at the SEC and say, Commissioner Jackson, you should adopt a rule regarding ICOs, regarding crypto. And I say to them, every time I see them, what would that rule look like today? And they describe it. And I say, okay, in the very best case, I can get from start to finish on that rule in 14, 15 months. Can you assure me that in 14 months this will be the right rule? Can you assure me that in 14 weeks it will be the right rule? And the answer is no. That means that from time to time, the SEC does its best work, not through the cumbersome and formal rulemaking process, but instead by talking to the marketplace. It's a dirty word in Washington right now, but we do this thing that I, as a practicing lawyer, when I was at Wachtell Lipton for some time, always valued very much, which was the ability to get guidance from the staff about what their expectations are and why. That process enables us to talk to the market, hear from solid practitioners who are developing the most cutting-edge solutions to business problems, and give them feedback about the questions that might arise under the securities laws as a consequence of those choices. I think that so far, it is fair to say our efforts in the cryptocurrency space, in the ICO space, and the most cutting-edge challenges we face have been by going this route. A case-by-case, careful determination through communications with industry about what we're comfortable with and where we would have questions. And I actually think it has so far been one of the finest moments under my terrific chairman, Jay Clayton, because we have taken a measured, balanced, careful approach that reflects what we do well, which is to talk to the market about what's happening. I don't yet have the sense that the market is in a position where we could pursue a cumbersome rulemaking and be confident that we would be making a rule that would make long-run sense for the market in many of the areas you talked about today. And what we cannot do, and I think must not do, is develop rules on these cutting-edge subjects that we've been discussing all day.
Cannot make rules. Then I'll finish this video by showing you this. This is Patrick McHenry. Now, after all of this, Joe Lubin's running around talking about Ethereum. We're not a security. You got Patrick McHenry, who can ask this guy, who's your SEC chairman, and there are two digital assets, Bitcoin and Ethereum, which, according to the SEC, are not securities. They're the ones that gave the market this impression. And so you got an SEC chairman who claims that everything's clear, but then he can't even clearly answer the question about the one of the two digital assets that they've let the market think are non-securities all this time. Listen to this.
But is it your view now that that Bitcoin and Ether are not securities?
No, I'm not going to get into any one token, but I think the securities laws are quite clear. If you're raising money from somebody else, and that's something the investing public believes that they anticipate or have a reasonable anticipation of profits based on the efforts of others, that fits within the securities law. And so,
okay, and that's why today, along those same lines, Chairman Gensler, along those same lines, that's why I introduced the Clarity for Digital Tokens Act with Representative Davidson and Budd, based on Commissioner Peirce's digital token safe harbor proposal. I asked about this before. Have you had a chance to review her proposal?
Commissioner Peirce and I talk actively about these matters, but I have not yet reviewed. I think you just introduced your bill this morning, and I look forward to looking closely at that.
Yeah, but the bill is based off of her proposal, and I was asking if you've reviewed her proposal.
Commissioner Peirce and I have had a number of conversations about her thoughts on this.
You see this bull crap? You've got an SEC chairman who's laughing in your faces. That's what you've got. Who's doing all this circular talk BS, his job, we're all investors out here. His job is to protect us. And he's doing this round and round merry-go-round talk where he's giving you no answers, nothing. The people out here that are trying to act in good faith from an innovation standpoint, how can they do anything with a clown like this running the show? This is a joke, but it's worse than that. It's worse than that, Congress. we've got the timeline. And don't you worry, I'm going to make sure you see it. I'm going to make sure you see it. We retweeted a lot around here because it's important. Now, I want to finish this video up. I've gone enough time. Reminding everybody that they've added Ripple Private Equity onto the Link2 platform. One of my sponsors. I'm a customer too. I bought some of this Ripple Private Equity myself because I think that when this SEC thing is over, I think that both Ripple Private Equity and XRP are going to do quite well. That's just my opinion. And they also have a little bit of Uphold left. A lot of that's sold. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and tell your friends and family that this video is for Congress and spread it around. We want them to see it. We want them to be pissed because everybody should be pissed right now. Thank you for